It's podcast time. It's Friday night, everybody. We're doing what we do because we're such cool, exciting people that what we do is get together and talk about a bunch of bullshit and get interrupted by my goddamn dog. There goes our... Man. Oh, well. Anyway. Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out the... nothing yet. I haven't built it yet, but Voter Guide 23 will be coming up for you city people who are voting in city races. The Sheriff's Office McAlister story continues to make news, and I'm excited to talk about it because I think it should continue to make news until the sheriff does something about it. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. I got some other stuff on the docket, if you will. Been really brain dead for the last 2 hours, so this might be a little rough. So let's see what happens. Drinking beer, that'll get my brain awake, right? Lama.
Hey.
Hi, Fran.
Hey.
What's new with you?
Ain't nothing.
Ain't nothing. So, yeah, I don't know. You want to start with the Lundy stuff, or you want to go somewhere else, come back?
That don't matter more.
We got all sorts of fun stuff. So, for those that want more in-depth stuff, the Compass guys did their interview this week with Miss Lundy.
Oh, nice.
And so, I haven't actually gotten to that part of my editing process yet, so I haven't seen the interview, so I don't know what she said specifically to them about it. But it got to pretty exciting, maybe. I don't know what the word is. I don't know what you call it. I mean, essentially, my understanding of it is last meeting, the Ayanna, is that the correct way to say her name? The girl that worked there that got fired.
I'm not sure.
I believe it's Ayanna. Came and spoke during public forum, so had to sign up as a regular speaker like anybody else would. 15-year-old girl. Went up there in a room full of people, told her side of the story, of which Dasha, for support, stood with her as she spoke to try to help her make it a little more comfortable. Like, yeah,
that wasn't the most recent one.
That wasn't the one this week. It was the one prior to it.
Right.
And so Miss Lundy has continued to push the issue because she wants the whole story, and sent a letter to the sheriff's office requesting that the sheriff himself, the spokesperson, and the 2 officers involved come to the meeting so they can talk about it a little more, get a little bit of clear understanding. Now, I can understand just in the kind of bullshitty gameplay that the sheriff's not going to put his officers out on the stand, essentially, in a public forum.
Right.
I can understand being like, maybe, how about we do it this way? And putting an alternate version up. But apparently, he wrote a letter back that was basically like, suck it. If you want some shit, here's a link to our website on where you can put your request for information form. Yeah. So just like the rest of us, if you want to ask a question to the sheriff's office, there's a form. You can be like, hey, whatever. It's an information request form.
Part of it was reaching out to his office, but then they said there was also reach out to their community outreach.
Right. But his response to her letter.
Right, but they weren't going to make them available for the city county.
He said, I'm not coming, period. My guys aren't coming, period. If you want more, here's how to go through the process. Which is interesting, because historically, even apparently, I don't know this part of the history, I wasn't paying attention, but the Compass guys were talking about it back in Sheriff Hutchinson era. Mm-hmm. Apparently, that was like the golden age of fucking rage between the commission, mayor's office, and the sheriff. Like, there was a whole bunch of issues constantly. Like, Knox County was suing Knox County Sheriff's Office. Knox County Sheriff's Office was countersuing the county and the mayor's office, and all sorts of crazy shit was going on back then. And even then, when requested by commission, Hutchinson would show up for a meeting. Apparently Hutchinson's communications guy was a lot better at communications than the current one, but wouldn't, he's like, yeah, you got to go, man. I know you don't want to go. I know this is a fucking crazy shit show, but you don't show up. It's worse for you than you showing up and getting yelled at for an hour. So go show up. Anyway, so that is as an issue in and of itself. Forget the underlying story of it, but just that aspect of the story, that if the commission asks you to come, technically, no, you don't answer to them. As the sheriff, you don't have to. but traditionally they usually do. And so that aspect in of itself is a big issue to me. I understand that technically the commission doesn't oversee the sheriff's office, so they have no authority over blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But
professional courtesy.
Right.
Kinda.
You're a public fucking servant, and a public body who was also elected wants to talk to you about something in public. Your answer should be yes to that, regardless. Like, it should be an obligated yes. But since it's not a legally obligated yes, it should just be a known or an understood part of the job is that when requested, you show up and you talk about issues when the commission wants you to. So, yeah. And, and so like to go back to the actual meat of the story is that, Lundy's point is, from all accounts that we've actually heard from, which is the girl and her coworkers, she didn't do anything wrong. But this crazy outrage cost her job. So I want the sheriff to come. I want the communications director to come. I want the 2 officers to come. She asked for the CEO of McAlister's proper as well as the local owner of the franchises to come.
Yeah.
All of whom refused. Because it's like, okay, what's the deal? We want to know the whole story here, and we're only getting half. And to me, and this is my conspiratorial mind, not really, but this is the conspiracy theory that I have in my head. I can't help myself but go here. Why wouldn't you come talk about it if you didn't do anything wrong? Which I know that's totally against how I stand on a bunch of shit. But in the public sphere of things for the sheriff's office, if you didn't do anything wrong, if you didn't fuck anything up, I feel like you're obligated, even if you did fuck something up. But either way, I feel like you should be obligated to hold your to at least show your accounting of the story. We pay their salaries. I know you hate that phrase. But, I mean, and really, technically, like when you get down to the brass taxes of it, the commission approves their budget, which therefore pays their salaries. Right. So it's not as much of a stretch as me saying it when Dasha says it, but it needs to be said. But either way, I again, like, why would, if you're the sheriff and you're getting heat, there's heat about this. Either you don't think it fucking matters and there's not enough heat to give a shit and it's a waste of time, or you don't want to go and publicly say that your officers are being fucking douches. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Or they could just see it as a lose-lose.
But it's already, but there's 3 plays and you're going to lose one of them.
Right.
And the one of them is that even a couple pro-cop Republicans, Gina Oster, of all people, was kind of perturbed that the sheriff didn't come upon request. Now, Gina doesn't like Spangler. She was a JJ fan. And so maybe that's part of it. Like, Gina has long-running issues with Spangler from when she was on Merit Council. And so maybe that's really all it is. Anything that she can do to fuck with Spangler is good for Gina. And so she'll support a Democrat given shit. But, Gina's also, she's a, law and order candidate. That was her fucking thing. But she wants to hold the cops to account. It's like, it's not like it's just the 2 Democrats like every other time that they do anything. It's assumed that Courtney's on board with wanting to know more about the situation. Ward's been on board, curious about it, as well as Oster. Like that wants more out of this than what's going on currently. Maybe that's not, I don't know exactly, because when Dasha left the meeting, before the meeting was over, even though there was only like one item that had no real value left, apparently. But when she left the meeting, Oster and Ward went out after her.
Really?
Where it's presumed that Courtney would have gone out, but Courtney's the chair now, so she can't leave. Like, she can't leave her seat like that. She has to run the meeting. The meeting never ends if she's not there to end it.
Yeah.
And so then apparently there was some shit went down at the legislative breakfast.
I didn't hear about that.
Or maybe it was outside this. Maybe it was a work session. I don't remember what it was. They were talking about it. Apparently some shit went down where Rhonda Lee specifically was that, like,
yeah, I heard it was Rhonda Lee and Daisha that were arguing before Daisha walked out.
Yeah, and Daisha and I think what the clip that I pulled from Tyler's Facebook page, Tyler Given's Facebook page, that I pulled because I wanted to run a little bit of it for you. I think his caption is it just me or is Larson kind of a jerk here? Which we'll get to that in a second. because this is from this week as well, and it's I don't know. I'm curious where Larson sits on the whole topic as well as a couple of the other members. Like, I could see Frazier being on board with saying there's one, and so apparently there's a subpoena thing. There's a subpoena power that the commission has, but it has to be 8. It's not just a simple majority of the 6 of 11. It has to be 8 of the 11. And so I could say confidently that Rhonda Lee is going to be a no. But I could see Courtney, Dasha, Oster, Ward. From this thing that we're about to play with Larson, he's probably a no. So that's 2 no's. And so you got a couple other ones that are kind of in the mix. So we got a 4-on-2 that off the top of my head. And so we only need to get...
As far as the subpoena just to appear?
Right. It would force the people she's asking to, that they would have to, by law, come to and speak before them.
Huh.
And since it's the commission, they can't do anything without everybody, and it has to be public. And so again, I think, to me, I don't how else do you do it? How else do you do it? It's like this is an issue. I think this is an issue. I think you agree, as we've talked about this event since it happened over the last couple of weeks. I think this is a problem. I think we as the public deserve the full story. Other than, because as far as I've gathered, at least, I've seen no coverage past, from the sheriff's perspective, I've seen no coverage past that first 24 hours. And it's just the Facebook posting. As far as I've seen, at least, nobody has talked to the officers. And Spangler, when asked, is not answering questions on it. Spangler's been out and done other press things, but will not address this one.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about it.
And so, I don't know. So I guess that's where we start. Is so do you agree that there's more to this story, and we should get the full story as the public?
I don't think there's a lot much more to the story. I think there's some gaps that need to get filled in as far as discrepancy and the, sequence of events and what exactly happened.
Okay, so from your understanding of the story, do you believe that... Again, I apologize if I'm saying her name wrong or if I'm completely conflating her name with somebody else. I believe it's Ayanna Thompson. Do you believe that Ayanna Thompson... What's the word I'm looking for here? Objectionably refused service to these cops?
No.
Okay. So the problem with this story at large to me is that, at least as far as the public understands it, because I agree with you, that's what it feels like to me as well. And then stories and all the different references and all that shit that I've heard on it, it seems to me that the most likely situation was it was the end of her day. She was going to do her side work and get out of there. She said to the person next to him, "Can you take over on the register? I'm going to go finish my stuff and get out of here." And it happened to be in the timing when the cops walked in, and they took that as her refusing service. That's what the story feels like to me. That's the most likely scenario, I think, in play. The only person to get punished in this whole process is who?
Her.
So and this whole thing became a story. Why?
The counties.
Because Kimberly Glenn
Right.
put it on Facebook. So the most simplified, boiled down version of it that I could put together is Kimberly Glenn cost this girl her job. And there's no backlash on Kimberly Glenn. Now, Kimberly Glenn, for her job title and what she does, therefore means Kim in the sheriff's office cost this girl her job. And the only loser in the story is still the girl.
Yeah.
And we're a month out.
Well, I think there's still the question of how did the officers know that she even worked there to then, for the story to even become that it was refused because...
See, I don't think... my understanding is they didn't. Nobody knew that until it got out onto Facebook, and somebody at McAlister's put it together. And I think it might actually been Ayanna herself who said, "No, I was the one working. I didn't refuse to serve them." Huh. I don't think anybody knew the Anthony Thompson Jr. part of the story until it was already blown out of proportion. That was just on top of, it happens to be this girl. But as I understand it, at least, nobody knew that when it was happening. The cops didn't know it. Nobody knew it. It was just as people were trying to fill in the blanks of the story, as all the people were like, oh, fuck you, McAlisters. You don't like cops. I'm never eating in your place again. And as McAlisters was starting to do their damage, control in the social sphere and shit like that, it was figured out that that was the person who was working at the time, as referenced by the Kimberly Glenn Post and blah, 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 blah. And so I don't think that connection was made. Now, again, my super conspiratorial mind says maybe cops knew that and did it on purpose just to fuck with her because her mom is currently suing their colleague cops in the city. Now, again, I understand. Big, super long, drawn out. I don't know that I think that's the truth. But it's a possibility. It's not impossible. But either way, forget my ridiculous conspiracy theory version of it. Just the closer to probable reality version of it is they didn't know. And they just got pissed off. Bitched at Kimberly Glenn. Kimberly Glenn put it on her Facebook. And then we roll out, because the internet sleuths do what the internet sleuths do and figure out who was working and which store exactly it was. And
see, some of this still just doesn't make sense because was that the only register and somebody took over? So was it every single cashier there refused every single one of them?
Well, and that's part of the story. That's the problem is that in as close to a sworn statement as you could get, the person who was working with the girl at the time who took the register over said no, she didn't refuse service. She just asked me to take over because she was doing her other things, and I was at the register ready to take their order. So even if it was only one register, there was the story that's officially out from the people involved on the employee side. Both say there was no gap in service.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they were standing at the, again, as I understand it, it wasn't even that they were standing at the counter. It wasn't like they were walking, my understanding was they were between the door and the beginning of the line to order when she left. There was nobody else there, but they weren't even at the counter to order yet when she says, hey, take over, I'm out of here. Again,
we'll see if they ever want to put out another statement.
The core point of it to me is I don't I think it's a problem. I think this is a problem of. I think this illustrates the ridiculousness of the partisan issues to the localized level. Is that there are at least a group of people, both in commission and countywide, who are dismissive of what Lundy is asking for because Lundy is a Democrat. It's automatic. We can't support what she's asking for, even if it's the right thing to do, because she's a Democrat. There's probably a group of people in Knoxville, maybe some on commission, probably not on, maybe one of the 11 on commission, but probably not. But there are probably a group of people out there that are like, no, she's a woman, she's an idiot, she can't be trusted, I don't care what she asks for. Then there's probably another group that says she's a black woman, that's a problem, I can't trust her for that. But at large, I don't think that's the norm. I think there are people out there who are assholes and who dismiss her because of her race or her gender. That's not the point. The one that I think is the more prevalent one is they dismiss her because of her political affiliation. And I think that's the problem because I think, at least for commission's sake and county government's sake, I think she is after something that is good and right and should be chased down and should be made an issue and should be clarified to the public. And because she's a Democrat, she's getting less traction than she should.
Possible.
And so I support it. I'm going to try to get her on the show to follow up more about it. Because I think I hope that she continues to push it. And Jesse made a good point when we were talking off air earlier is that, her district is not going to dislike her for going after cops. Her district, her constituents are probably significantly on board with this as far as her district in the city, even though she's a county rep, but her district is almost all of East Knoxville. I think her entire district is in the city limits.
Okay.
But, so for her to be doing her job correctly, representing her constituents, that's what she's doing. And so, again, I think the partisanship part being any sort of distraction from getting the answers that I think the public deserves is ridiculous. What do you think?
I don't have much more on it.
Okay. I just like I said, I think it's I don't know. It's more than it should be. It's dumb. But it's exciting.
It's an issue. I wouldn't call it a major issue that's going on in town. I think it's more of an issue with, I guess, the county sheriff's departments as far as their PR community outreach.
Right.
It seems like that's where all of this kind of stemmed from.
Right.
That's caused this whole...
Right, but I think this doubles down on what I was complaining about a couple episodes ago. Like, this could have been an opportunity to bridge a gap between law enforcement and the public. Instead, they used it, intentionally or not, to widen it. And now this is another opportunity to start bridging the gap. And Sheriff Spangler's response is, no. Put in an information request through our office, blah, 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 blah. And so to me, I feel like Spangler's doubling down on, well, tripling down now on, nah, we can't do anything wrong. We're the sheriff's office. I don't answer to you. And I think that's a problem. Speaking of commission.
Well, I mean, like you said, according to the rules, he does not answer to the commission.
I agree.
So, I mean, what? Are you encouraging the commission to make laws that they oversee the sheriff's department more? I don't know what you expect more to come out of as far as...
I don't know. I don't know where like this goes to the problem of who do you go to? Like, who do you go to when you have an issue? Like, if you're this girl and you think you were wrongfully terminated because of some bullshit the sheriff's office did.
Well, the only person that oversees the sheriff is the mayor.
No.
Or no, it's the governor, sorry.
Right. And, I mean, what are the odds that this girl's going to get an audience with the governor to talk about this issue?
Right.
You know, and so you use what you have, which would be the commission, to try to get a little bit of light onto the story, and then Lundy uses what she has, which is her platform on it, you know. And so I don't know. You're right, because it's one of those things I take issue with a lot. I think I don't know, because I don't know that it was discussed in the legislative meeting this week.
I'm not saying give up on it. I'm just saying you're getting frustrated in the wrong aspect of it.
Well, I mean, part of it too is that it's, you know, we had Spangler or JJ. We didn't even have a Democrat. We didn't have anybody non-party affiliated. We didn't have anything else. We had Spangler and JJ, and which is its own problem, you know. And so part of the election process being part of it too, and it's not. I don't know. I agree. It's one of those.
That's where we're asking them to follow, or expecting them to follow a quote-unquote kind of norm or expectation, but
right.
It's nothing that's required by law or any
True.
kind of rule whatsoever.
Right, but I think it should be held.
So it's not like they're acting outside of their
right.
Their
they're not doing anything they're not supposed to or allowed to per se. But I think it should be. I think it's highly notable that this issue is enough to break a norm. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
I think it's a rare occurrence that the sheriff would even be asked to come in outside of maybe they were doing some kind of crime study or something. They might invite him to come in because they would do it in conjunction with.
Well, again, going back
to
department,
but
going back, Jesse was talking about when he was with News Sentinel, or maybe he was at the city. I can't remember where he was at the time. Like Hutchinson was at. Whether he was called or not, he was in attendance to almost every commission meeting for like 2 years straight. Huh. But part of that was because they were having a bunch of back and forth issues. But speaking of commission and the legislative thing, as I mentioned, we had our legislative breakfast this week on Thursday morning, I think it was.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
No. I'd say tell us what that is.
So essentially, all our state house and state senate reps that represent any or part of Knox County will do. Basically, they come and hang out, and the commission gets to. They do their checklist. As Knox County Commission. Here's some stuff that we'd like you to get done on the state level, if you don't mind. Essentially, is what it is. And so Massey's there, Elaine Davis is there, Carringer's there, Zachary's there, Sam McKenzie's there. Briggs is there, And so it's just kind of a meet and greet to hang out. They do stuff, but they also present their wish list. Knox County Schools presents their wish list. City of Knoxville presents their wish list. Everybody kind of gets together and does it. So apparently on the legislative agenda for commission is they want Miss Massey to get her bypass back on the plan. Knox County wants that bypass, which I find interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about the bypass in general. Like, there's like absolutely 40, 75, 81. There's a lot of traffic, and it would be nice to get any percentage of the traffic that doesn't need to be going through downtown West Knoxville out of the way. It'd be nice. But how much revenue do we generate as a county off of that traffic? Like, certainly plenty of people drive straight through. But how many people stop for lunch, stop for dinner, stay for the night at one of the hotels in town? Whatever it is. Make Knoxville a stop intentionally on their travel plans because it's on the way.
All right.
And so is there any other options too? Because one of the things that somebody posted talking about it, it's like, well, how about we invest similar amounts of money on anything else but car-based travel? Which, so instead of taking the passing through, well, some of it would be, adding to freight systems to get less trucks on the road, more cargo onto trains instead of trucks. But then any sort of passenger rail, whether intercity or intracity passenger rail, anything to put less cars on the road, period. Which I think is an interesting, especially because this is like, if it gets back on the shit to do list by the state Department of Transportation, it's like 10 years out. Like, it's not like Massey gets it on the list and it gets started this year.
Right.
It'll get it on the list and it'll be after, some Nashville project and Memphis
planning.
Project and a Chattanooga project and all these other projects are going on, all the planning. I mean, how much land do they have to go out and get? How much of acres and acres of land they'll have to buy to do this. Eminent domain, lawsuits, all sorts of fun stuff. I mean, it's a huge, decades plus long project. Even if they say, yes, we're going to do it, here's the path, it's still going to take years to even break ground on any of it.
Right.
And so, looking into the future, what is personal travel going to be in 10 years? What is freight going to be in 10 years? Is this the best investment? Because it'll be a couple $billion project probably.
Possibly, yeah.
Can we use it on something else or whatever? And so I find that interesting that commission signed off on that. Because it doesn't really help. I can't see it. The traffic alleviation is a positive for Knox County.
So maybe it just sounds good in the interim.
But what does it do? Right. And it's an interesting thing, too, is like none of the people who are in commission right now will be there when any of this comes to fruition.
Yeah. Maybe a couple. But
no, I mean, legally they can't be unless you have somebody that, like if you have Kyle who is not seeking re-election because he just had a baby, and then maybe him 10 years from now decides to run again. Like that's the only way because it's a 2-term period.
Ever. Gotcha.
Right. Right. Where the sheriff's a little weird. The sheriff's two consecutives, and then you take a break, and then you can do 2 more consecutive. But like Mayor Jacobs won't be there anymore. None of the commissioners will be there. None of that stuff will continue as is. And so I find that one to be a fascinating thing. What are you looking at?
Huh?
What are you looking at?
Just look at what you got up on the screen.
Well, I was getting there. You think I could put it up there to tease you with it?
I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Oh.
Keep clicking on and off shit. Sorry. It just keeps catching my eye.
I'm not clicking on. I'm not touching anything. Lights are flashing. Shiny.
You were minimizing and maximizing windows.
That's true. I was making sure the recording was still going good.
Okay.
That's what I do. I don't know. What's new? What's going on? You excited about the insurance program? I'm excited to get it set up and in place so that those of you that want it have the option.
Be excited to pay for a cushion again.
Do it?
Be excited to pay for a cushion again.
A cushion?
Yeah. Financial cushion.
Oh. It's a mess. Like, I mean, going through it both as a potential customer and as what's the term? The HR representative who's going to be the liaison, I guess, between the insurance company and you directly. Like, I mean, you call me with an insurance question, I'm just going to give you an 800 number. But,
right.
Having to try to figure out, set this up and do all this different, it's weird. Like, I hate it. Like, I really do. Like, I'm happy to get it set up and give you guys the option, but I don't like that. I think it sucks that you need me for it, for lack of a better word. I think it's unfortunate. It gives me leverage over you as an employer, and I don't want leverage. I don't want stick leverage. I want carrot leverage. I want you to do stuff for me because you're happy to do it, not because you're afraid you're going to lose your insurance and income.
Right.
I think that sucks. And so, what do? Do the best you can for what you got.
A lot of people stuck in that boat.
It's stupid. Like, I mean, I don't like I'm not a fan of the one payer system, but I mean, the having it attached to work is just really sucky because it gives so much more leverage to the employer. And everybody bitches about the billionaire class and all these evil fucking business owners and all this kind of shit. And then you advocate to make them have more to hold over your head. Before the new age of single payer.
It does suck that it's tied to it, but I don't know, it'd be some crazy numbers to crunch, but I would think overall people in general are getting better rates being able to go through kind of larger groups, being a part of employers, or being in employee groups, I guess, with their employer, versus each person having their own individual or family plan.
See, but that's not even true. That's the problem. Is like, so Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, who is one of the major insurers in the state of Tennessee, I don't know if they get some sort of subsidy from the state or federal or both or whatever the setup is, but their rates are not, doesn't matter if I have, I need more than 6. As long as I have more than 6 employees, we get to bypass some paperwork. We could do it with as little as 1 employee if we wanted to, but there's extra paperwork. But as long as we can get to 6, we can bypass some paperwork. But the rates that we are getting are based on, like he said, 3 factors. Age, gender, and regional cost averages or some shit like that.
Right.
And so, like, it's not pre-existing conditions, none of that other stuff that's going on. It's literally through Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have like 50 plans total available. And all those plans are cost out and based on what all of East Tennessee, like, Bristol to Cookeville, Chattanooga, so the averages that people are paying for all the different medical services and stuff like that, they pile all that into a thing, and that's how they cost out their plans. It has nothing to do with how many people I bring into the plan. I don't get a discount for having 5 employees, 50 employees, 500 employees sign up with them. At least for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, Humana or not Tenova, but some of those other ones, they might make it better, and it might be cheaper than Blue Cross Blue Shield if you can get to those, we have 500 employees levels.
Right.
But at least for us, it doesn't matter. So that discount that makes it cheaper because we're buying in bulk conversation does not apply here. Now, I don't know the others, but at least for this one, that's not true.
Okay.
Because so theoretically, and I don't know, maybe I'll ask the guy this question. Just be like, hey, just theoretically, if I threw out everything we were talking about and just wanted to get personal insurance for me and my family through you, would it be the same as what it is? Be curious to know that. I need to ask him that question. It's an unimportant question.
Like, it just depends on the plan you choose.
Right, but of the 9 plans you gave me options for, can I just pick one for me? It has nothing to do with my job or anything else.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a requirement. Because I think the one thing for Blue Cross Blue Shield in this situation is, at the end of the day, the employer's on the hook to pay the bill.
At the end of the day, you're still going through a broker, but you're not operating directly with Blue Cross Blue Shield Tennessee.
You can't. At least not for small business. You got to get to some fucking. That's maybe. Right. That's once you break the 50 employee threshold or something like that. You can go deal with them directly. But apparently the broker doesn't. He explained to me how he gets paid. I don't remember. But he's like, your cost doesn't change because of me. So yeah, that's somewhere. I'm paying for whatever you get out of us somewhere in this thing. But, excuse me. Pardon me. An email came in. I don't know what it was.
Oops.
It's probably Babylon Bee. I don't even remember signing up for it. Which I think is kind of funny. Have you seen the Babylon Bee?
No idea what you're talking about.
They were one of the early getting kicked off of Twitter for fake news.
Huh.
Babylon Bee is literally a new version of The Onion.
Really?
Like, that is what they do, is fake news. It is joke, humorous, fake news. And they got kicked off of Twitter for it. They got back on with the Elon Musk return thing. So the thing I have up on the screen for everybody is Mr. Mayor Jacobs and his Jacobs Romero's Facebook page put out, share if you are tired of paying for Washington's reckless spending habits. I didn't share. I commented. And my comment said, Jacobs for Mayor. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this fair tax bill. Although I often chide you for speaking about things outside your job title, I would actually like to hear from you on this. Us Tennesseans paying 30% sales tax, ? Have you seen anything on this fair tax bill that the Republicans are floating in the federal government? So it would do away with income tax, federal income tax, and it would go to a federal sales tax. Which, I mean, this was a thing floated years ago. Like, Rush was a big fan of it. Rush Limbaugh was a big fan of it back when he was in his prime. Not that makes it a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying. And who's the money guy?
Which one?
He's been around forever. Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
Dave Ramsey's a fan of the fair tax.
I'd say Jim Cramer.
Jim Cramer's very excitable. But I think it's Dave Ramsey, because my dad used to listen to Dave Ramsey all the time, talk to me. He'd be like, how's your household budget? You got this thing? Dave Ramsey says this. Dave Ramsey says that. It's like, Dad, I love you.
Yeah. He's still in there.
Dave Ramsey doesn't work in the market that I work in. He works in the market that you grew up in. It's a whole different animal. But anyway, so I guess apparently it was part of some of the holdouts in the McCarthy speakership thing was that they wanted to get this fair tax on the floor as a voting bill. I'm interested. I'm curious. And that was a legitimate question I had for the mayor. Like, I actually want to know what he thinks about it on a political, not just on a political standpoint, but on an actual day-to-day. I mean, it is a regressive tax. Depending on how you do the math, it's a regressive tax. If you do the math on percentage of income, it costs more to the lower classes. It's because if you're a multimillionaire and you only spent 10% of your income, you're only getting taxed on 10% of your income. Where if you're fairly poor and you spend 99% of your income every year, you're getting taxed on everything. So that's the regressive portion of it. But it's also fair in the sense that if I go out and spend $1,000, I pay taxes on it. If you go out and spend $1,000, you pay taxes on it. So it takes out it. Part of it is supposed to diminish the idea of how much the IRS has to do, and then therefore how many loopholes and special little twists and games. Because think about like Elon Musk, for example. He does. I can't remember. There's some fancy fun name for it, but it's the he doesn't get paid by Tesla and Twitter. He might get paid in shares, but he doesn't get paid in cash. He doesn't get a paycheck. And so what he does is take his assets, whether it's homes and shit like that, as well as his Tesla's stock and stuff like that, and he gets loans against that, and that's how he does his day-to-day spending. And so for whatever, apparently that's that's the super rich move, is you take loans out against your assets, use that as your spending money, pay the loans back, and you don't, because it's not income,
What are you paying your loans back with?
I don't know. That's where I'm confused. I don't know if it's the sale of stock or what. Or the business pays the loans back and it becomes an expense for the business, therefore a write-off on the business side of it. I really don't quite understand it.
So you get shit for free then?
You don't get shit for free. You just get...
You took out a loan against your assets.
Mm-hmm.
And the company pays the bill.
Right, but you own the company.
Right.
Right, so you take $1 million loan out. The company pays $1 million off. You have $1 million in cash.
But the company wrote it off as a business expense.
Right. I think. I don't know if that's how that side of it works exactly. But yes.
Gotcha.
It's like, if that is the correct way it works, it's smart. It's super smart.
How is that closing off the IRS quote-unquote loophole system?
Because you can loan money, you can pay them in cash, you can do whatever you want because the loan is not taxed as income. But when you go spend the money, it's taxed because it's a sales tax. So if Elon takes $1 million out using his Tesla shares as leverage and goes and buys a yacht, $1 million isn't enough for a yacht.
Dinghy. A dinghy for his yacht.
Right. Puts a down payment on his yacht. He has to pay sales tax on that purchase.
Okay.
Where he didn't pay income tax to get that money out. Where you and I, we pay income tax. Well, I pay it after the fact. You pay it as your checks come in. But you pay income tax before you get your money.
Okay.
Right? And so, again, so that means Elon would be getting taxed on what he's spending, not on what he's making. Doesn't matter what he makes. It's how much money he spends. That's where the tax comes out. So the state of Tennessee is a sales tax state. State of Tennessee doesn't take our money out of our paycheck. It takes our money out of our spending. And it would do this on a federal level. So that currently when you go in and buy something for $1, it's $1.09. Depending on what number the federal government comes, it could be $1.29. But you would also get 100% of your paycheck, minus Social Security and Medicare. Unemployment.
All right.
What? Do you think that would be a better, worse? What? Do you have any thoughts on this as an alternate system?
Don't think it would change much, or else I think we would have gone to this system much longer ago.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that.
So what has stopped us from growing to this?
Who are the people that have the most influence on the people that make the decision to go this or
they're
not?
just trying to hide it from us. That's what it is.
I mean, you don't think that Bezos...
Yeah, they've been sitting on this gold mine of how to keep everybody down.
It's not about keeping everybody down. It's about keeping their money. The richest of the rich don't want to pay taxes. That's an established fact, right?
Well, you just said this was aggressive tax, so it would affect them less. So they would care less.
It would affect them less respectively to the rest of the population, but would it affect them less than it does the current system? Probably not. I think it would affect them more than the current system.
I doubt it.
I mean, I'm sure they'll write in a loophole to make sure that they can, but at least that's the sales pitch, is that if you spend money, you pay taxes. Doesn't matter how you make it. So for you uber wealthy, and you go buy your $10 million mansion, you're going to pay sales tax on your $10 million mansion. That's how we're going to get our tax money from you, instead of trying to figure out where your money comes from.
Okay.
So my point is the people who would be the most effective difference to are probably the richer people, because this will likely tax them more than they are currently getting taxed, and therefore they don't like it.
I don't think so.
Okay. How do you not? Why do you say that?
Because I would imagine that the ones we think that we're going to benefit the most from adding this tax on or already have most of their quote-unquote taxable income outside of the jurisdiction of the United States financial system, so they have nothing to worry about.
They're right, but we're not taxing their income anymore. That's my point. So,
as far as what they spend, doesn't matter.
It would in the new system.
How so?
Because it's
only if they buy inside of the United States would they be paying sales tax that would then go back into the U.S. coffers. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So Bezos is going to move to well, let's go back to Elon because it's easier as a punchline. Elon's going to move back to South Africa and live his life back in South Africa, buy all his things in South Africa, so he doesn't have to pay sales tax.
He has to buy only things in the United States?
No.
Okay.
But he lives in the United States.
Yeah,
he works in the United States. I would think that most of his spending goes on in the United States, yes.
He can buy shit from anywhere.
He can.
Alibaba's just as big as Amazon.
Sure. It's bigger, I think.
I think so, too.
But I would wager he's not a particularly patient man to want to wait. There are tariffs in place depending on where these things of Alabama are coming from.
I mean, that's small things. I mean, we're talking about like big things that you're going to be making lots of money.
Right. So he's going to move back to South Africa and buy a $10 million mansion there instead of in Texas where his office and warehouse is.
Because he's buying mansions left and right.
Actually, he was selling a bunch of them.
Okay.
It's a separate thing, but I'm using that as an example just because I know he's from South Africa. I don't know where Bezos is from or what's his face from Google or Apple or any of those others. It's just the first rich CEO guy that would be affected by this more.
I'm just saying they don't have to buy things within the U.S. These big ticket items, these giant yachts or whatever, aren't always going to be bought in U.S. currency in the United States.
Right. But again, let's take the big ticket items off of it.
That's where we're making up this windfall, right?
No, we're not, because look at what was it? Trump's tax returns came out. He paid like $750 or whatever that one year. That's what everybody's getting all bent out of shape about, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so math. So, do you think that Donald Trump, in day-to-day living, over whatever year that fucking was, even as the president of the United States, do you think he spent, I don't know, $10,000 on stuff inside the United States in that time period?
Probably.
Then that would have collected more taxes than the $750 he paid in income tax that year.
Okay.
That's the point.
No, he had losses. That's what's all it was.
You don't get to write off losses in the new in that system.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot he prepaid. Am I crazy? Are you hearing like?
I mean, I was hearing your thing rattle against your ring.
I'm hearing like recording, kind of like sounded funny.
When the fridge compressor kicks on and off, there's a little bit of interference, and I think it just kicked off.
Yeah, that's what it was. I'm sorry.
Maybe it's this.
No.
ASMR.
No, it was in the audio. Sorry, that's what I was saying. You were picking apart my example of Trump and his $750 or whatever the fuck it was that one year in his tax returns that all he paid in income tax that year was $750. Oh, no, that's right. He had losses. Oh, no, and then he said that he prepaid his taxes,
which that does happen in the current system, but neither of those things would happen in this system because there would be no income tax, so you can't write off losses because you don't have it's not an income tax. The way when you write off losses or prepaid taxes, writing off being the easier one to discuss, that says I spent $10 million this year on my business. I brought in $9 million, so I have a negative $1 million in revenue.
Right.
So you can't negatively tax me unless you're going to give me money for being a loser.
I was more just making fun of.
I agree. Make fun of Trump. Do it to it. But that being the example is that all the tax loophole chicanery and ridiculousness that goes on theoretically is out the window in this system. I say theoretically because I haven't read through the specifics of how they're doing this.
I was about to say that this sounds all magical.
It's not a new concept. The only thing that I don't understand about how it would work and what I think is concerning about it is the way my dad described it to me back in the Ramsey era of it, because this was a Tea Party thing back in that era as well. The only thing that I don't understand on how it would work is it would take away all tax-exempt statuses, which I think you would like, at least on the church's side. Because for one of the bonuses of being a business of any sort, whether it's a tax-exempt business or not, you don't pay sales tax on products that you are turning around and selling. So, for example, when I go to Sam's Club and pick up stuff for the shop, if I buy toilet paper, we pay sales tax on it. If I buy Cokes in a can that we're going to resell, I don't pay sales tax on it. Because the sales tax will be collected at the time of the final user, you being the public. And so, at least the way my dad described it, is that thing goes away. And so there would be a federal sales tax. I guess your state sales tax would still be exempt. But you would pay the federal sales tax to purchase items to sell in your business. which would therefore raise the price of your things again even further. So that's the part I'm not sure about in the way this is going to break down. What's our GDP?
Gross domestic product.
Yeah.
You asked me what it stands for?
No, I know what it stands for. What was our GDP in 2022?
Oh, no fucking clue.
Real gross domestic product is rated 3.2%.
Well, the disadvantages, the article said, for the fair tax was it would need a new agency to enforce it.
Well, but
we're getting rid of the IRS.
It would abolish the IRS.
But we would need a whole new agency to oversee this.
I don't really understand that. I mean, you would need, Tennessee Department of Revenue, they do all of that here for the state sales tax. You would just need a federal Department of Revenue that handles all that. Because, I don't know how many people know this. I'm just used to it. But it's kind of honor system-ish. It really is. So we've talked about this on the show for school board and stuff like that. When the county puts their budget out, and if in the month of January they're budgeted to spend X number of dollars, they don't know that they're going to get that money because income from the state of Tennessee to Knox County is the income generated in October. So like February and March for local spending tend to be higher because that's Christmas shopping, sales income. Right? But so anyway, when you own a business, and this is an issue I have in the super narrow, crazy, absolutist philosophical issues that I have, is why am as a business owner, I am a tax collector for the state of Tennessee. It is part of the agreement to do business in the state of Tennessee. You have to be a tax collector. And so I collect your sales tax when you buy stuff, and I hold that, and then I send it to the state once a month. I get it. Functionally, I understand it, and it's reasonable, more or less. The state makes it pretty easy to deal with. It is kind of a bummer when you have a whole bunch of money and you have to send it to the state once a month instead of doing it in a shorter format so it's smaller numbers so it doesn't piss you off as much, but that's an aside. But the state of Tennessee, you tell them how much money you collected, and then you send it to them. And more or less, that's what you do. And there's not a ton. You can get audited, obviously, by the state, but I don't know. I've never heard of anybody getting audited by the state of Tennessee. I'm sure it's happened. Actually, take that back. I think when I was with that bar, they got audited. But they also didn't pay for 2 years straight.
I'd say it's probably general things like the IRS. They have a 6-year window that they can.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you're
go back.
But if you're reporting and sending them something that's not ridiculously
like many things, it is essentially on the honor system. There is literally no way to police every single thing.
So as far as your quick research said, the new agency would have to be that. Would have to be, because the assumption would be that it would then become my responsibility again as a business owner. I collect sales tax and hold it for the state and send it to the state. I now collect sales tax, hold it for the federal government, and send it to the federal government once a month or whatever it is.
Right.
Which, on a purely very core base philosophical level, I resent that.
You wanted the system.
Do what?
You wanted the system.
I wanted the system?
Yeah. Thought you wanted this fair tax thing.
I know I said I'm interested.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I can see the argument for why it might be better.
Would you prefer there be neither?
A little bit. Because then it goes back to that stupid question we ask all the time. What does the federal government do for us? What are we paying all this money for? What are we going on with this debt for?
They should just let everybody just do whatever they want.
Yep, that's the answer to everything.
That is a free society.
A little bit. It would be a super free.
Everyone would be so happy if everyone gets to do whatever they want.
As long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else and you're not taking other people's shit. Sounds pretty reasonable for the most part.
But then you're infringing on my freedom to be free.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, I get to do whatever I want. Don't infringe on my freedom.
Okay. So.
Don't tread on me.
All right. So if like philosophically, completely philosophically, not governmentally or politically or any of that other shit, philosophically, make infringing on my rights make sense to you being free. If you're absolute free, I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? I'm absolutely free to do whatever I want.
Right.
Make it make sense that you can damage other people. The only way you can make that make sense is that I am the only one that's free. Nobody else is. It's the only logical way you can follow that train of thought. Is that I am free, but nobody else is. Because everybody else is subject to my freedom. Right?
Sure.
So philosophically, if I believe in freedom, I don't believe in just my freedom as a single individual. I believe in your freedom as well.
Right.
And so the old statement, my freedom ends where your nose begins.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So that means I can, as a person who wants to be as free as possible, I acknowledge that my freedom ends where it interferes with yours.
Okay.
So this whatever I want, which implies like I can fuck 12-year-olds if I want to, or I can kill you just because I feel like it, and there's no crime in that because I'm free, right? Right? That is not philosophically consistent with a freedom, with a person who desires true freedom for all. It's not consistent philosophically.
But you would agree that freedom is a perspective. What is free for me is not going to be free for you. So there's going to be discrepancies in how a person sees what their individual freedom is.
Right. And so what we need to figure out is where the actual...
We can agree on what hurts some people, but some people don't have that same concept of what's actually bothering somebody.
Right. And so...
Whether it's hurt their feelings or whatever.
Right,
or just straight up stresses them out or just pisses them off.
Right.
That is not physically harming them.
I acknowledge...
But you are doing harm to another person.
I acknowledge that there are some finer points that need clarification.
Okay.
And that be... and I
that was my main exaggerated point in that.
Personally, your emotions and feelings and whatever don't matter to me. I mean, yours do.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Sure. So I can be offensive.
Because you have that mindset.
I can be offensive. I can call you ugly. I can do all sorts of terrible say all sorts of terrible things, but
that's not to say.
Do things.
Right.
And actually, inside a freedom-loving person's mindset, for me to lie or what would be libelous and or slander is philosophically consistent that could be criminal for me, because I would be
could be maybe
because if I'm damaging you or your property with my words and damaging in such that is a tangible damage, saying I say you do certain things and people don't do business with you because I say that and I don't have facts to back that up, right? So if I say that that you came to my house because I hired you to build my deck and you only built half my deck and left.
Libel laws. I got you.
Right.
I'm with you.
That's within the realm of freedom to say that libel laws can't exist.
Okay.
Because I am financially damaging you, which is a tangible thing, with my falsehood. Now, when it's something that's intangible, I don't think it's hard to be applicable. One of the things I struggle with most, like truly most, with the libertarian philosophy is intellectual property. Like true hardcore libertarians don't believe in intellectual property. And I have a hard time with that one.
Yeah. It's
a very complicated one, but I have a hard time with that. Like I created this thing whole cloth. This podcast, this conversation we're having, we created this here and now. For somebody else to take this and use it to make money without our permission, I have a problem with. But
right.
Like a hardcore libertarians think, no, there is no such thing as intellectual property.
It's just free access to anyone.
Right. The argument is
once it's quote unquote publicly available.
Right. The argument is that in the free market in the free market at play, you have to be better at it in order to be the one to make the win in the game. And so if somebody else uses what you're saying and what you're doing for their own gains, it's because you didn't do it better than they did, even though they're using you. Like it's a hard, like I don't agree with that one. Because to me, if I built a chair and sold that chair That person now owns the chair. They can do what they want with it. But I built that chair. If somebody came in and took that chair out of my driveway and sold it to somebody else, that's theft. Now, if I built a song, I should be able to sell that song the same way I sell a chair. Because, that's intellectual property to me in a nutshell. And so that one I struggle with as far as the philosophical, trying to balance the party ideals and whatever. Like, I have a hard time with that one. But back to the point, no, I can't punch you in the face. But sure, I can call you names and do all sorts of stuff.
All right, let's say your neighbor on his own property decides to start booking bands every night, entirely through the night. Every single speaker turned up to 11.
Would you...
Do you have recourse? Or is he just doing him and you're doing you? Doesn't matter, you can't sleep.
No, because that does physical damage to me.
How so?
If I can't sleep,
yeah.
Would you not agree that lack of sleep, I'm pretty sure there's data to back that up, that people that don't get enough sleep die sooner?
In the long term.
Sure.
I mean, it's not going to be a monthly or within a year.
Okay. People like that, there's definitely been studies that people with a lack of sleep are more dangerous than drunk drivers. So
then you would not have recourse until you actually died to go to your neighbor. Until harm was actually done.
No, the damage is being done.
How do you prove that harm is being done?
Because the science says that not getting enough sleep is physically detrimental to me as a person.
What recourse do you have?
I mean, I could shoot him in the face. No, that wouldn't be legal or libertarian.
I mean, like, seriously, would you go to the doctor, get a...
No, it's an interesting
one. Get a note that...
No, I mean, yeah, it would be... I think in a...
You're having temporary psychosis from insomnia.
I mean, I think it would be... Are
you still going through the court system?
It would be a lawsuit of some sort. It would be a suit for damages. But yeah, I'd probably have to prove. I'd have to prove damages or likelihood to damage. I would think in some system. I mean, I'm not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist. And actually, I'm not even that either. If you want to get down to it, I've said this 1,000 times. I'm a libertarian federally. I'm a libertarian, like a true hardcore libertarian federally. Because what you're talking about should be handled and would be handled at the local level, right? Like the Supreme Court's not going to chime in on whether I have a right to general peace at night. I mean, okay. Now, I'll save that one for a second. Yeah, I don't think the Supreme Court would be chiming in on that. I don't think the Supreme Court of the state of Tennessee would be chiming in on that.
It's possible.
It could. It could get there. But it would start here.
There's enough of that weird kind of gray area that depending on how good of a lawyer or how sympathetic of a judge you got.
And again, like Knox County has sound ordinances in place. And so the real pushback would be...
All right, but I'm going into this pseudo-libertarian model world.
Again, I don't believe in that. I don't want that, and I've said that. I want the least effectual... functional federal government, which is why I made the point of this isn't a Supreme Court case, right?
Right.
I want a very mild, like if I were going to put it into political parties, I want a libertarian federal government, I want a Republican state government, and I want a liberal, maybe even socialist local government.
Man, you're all about the hodgepodge.
No, because... But that's assuming that the power goes with it.
Those are all going to get along?
That assumes that the power goes with it, yes, because if you're a super libertarian federal government, take care of your own business states, right? It's got to be really important to get to me. If you're a super Republican state government, take care of your own shit. For the most part, take care of your own shit. We'll make it easy for you guys to do business and all that kind of stuff. But if they're counties, take care of your own shit. Call us if you need some help. And then the counties get serious about the day-to-day life stuff. I think that makes total sense. Because the problem is that what we are so used to looking at...
It sounds good, but I don't...
Because the problem is we're used to looking at it not only... we're looking at it structurally backwards, from what I'm saying. Like, my thing is turn the whole thing over. that the mayor of your city or county or mayor of your local government, that should be the election that everybody turns out for. And the federal government election should be one that's like, I don't know who those people are. It doesn't fucking matter. But currently, it matters mountains more who the president of the United States is than who your county governor or who your county executive is, your mayor, for lack of a better word. Because my dream, my utopian whatever bullshit that I just laid out, only works if the power works with it. So not only is the actions that the government are doing backwards from what we're used to, but also the power is backwards as well. That the local has the authority to make all these rules and do all these things and turn Knox County into X, whatever they want to turn it into, whatever Knox County elects its body to make. And they're not looking to, and it also comes to financials too. They're not looking to the state for money or the federal government for money. They're not doing things within whatever the state says they're allowed to do and not allowed to do, all that kind of shit. They have the authority to do a lot of things on their own, which they don't currently. And so not only the power, but the authority and all those kind of things flipped over. Because you know what?
What don't they have the power to do?
What are you talking about?
Local level compared to state. What can local do?
Can or can't?
Cannot.
I mean, the state does everything locally for us. I mean, other than
that was not my question.
Law, what can state do? What can
what cannot local do?
I mean,
what can local not do that you're saying is going to be a major change that now local will have the power to do, and they're not having to go to the state. So what is local being restricted from doing that they've got to get state authorization for?
I mean, they got to get state authorization for almost everything.
Like what?
I mean,
I just don't know what you're talking about.
I'm trying to think of like all the 90% of like roadwork projects. The money comes from the state. The schools come from the state. I don't know. Like what's? Yeah, I mean, we got leash laws.
Yeah, I guess if you turn the funding upside down, then
right. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing needs to flip over.
Sorry, I was thinking of it differently.
Right, but and again,
that's something outside of there being monetary tied to it. Yes, you're going to have to ask for permission when you're using state funds.
Right, that's what, and I apologize because I didn't put that. I threw
that's what I was getting kind of confused.
Like the whole thing, like so again, because I made the comment on here plenty of times is, out of your checks from your jobs and your money, in the totality of taxes collected from you as an individual. The majority of the taxes collected go to the state or go to the federal government, and then the rest of them go to the state with the tiny pinch of that coming back to the county or the city that you're in. And yes, that should flip over too. To me, in my perfect system. My perfect system would be...
Bye-bye small towns.
To what?
Bye-bye small towns.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, what do you mean bye-bye small towns? Why? Because they need federal dollars? Like, because they don't need federal dollars? They do need federal dollars? I don't understand. What is the... Because so that the county of... What's a small town county? Or a county with small towns? It's only small towns, no big city.
I don't know.
I don't understand. Why would you say... Why would that... I think that would be better for small towns than...
That'd be worse for small towns.
How so?
More often than not, people that live in small towns don't work in that same small town.
Okay.
So the tax monies aren't actually going back. Those tax monies are not going back into those small towns. Okay. I think it's only going to exaggerate what's already happening in the demise of small towns.
So either invest in the town you live in, because you go to a different place to work and come back to your small town, you need to either invest in that small town or deal with the consequences of having not the infrastructure to go to work. Look, I mean, it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. Because yes, the smaller the smaller counties with the lower populations won't be able to out-hit their income because they're not getting kickback income from their neighbors. Right?
Right.
But I could still see that as I could still see it as a workaround, as being a workaround where there is a... What are you laughing
at? You trying to figure out this workaround?
No, I can still see it as that there's
leads back into the old system of sharing.
Okay, so theoretically, all right, so Knox County, Knoxville, right? Third largest, fourth largest.
We go back and forth between us and Hamilton.
So
Chattanooga.
So Knox County, in its grandness, gets all of its own money, right? No taxes leave Knox County, or very little do. Very little go to the state. So we flip over the sales tax. It's 9.25%, 7% stays here. Only 2.25% goes to the state, right?
Okay.
And that's for the state to do, state roads that come in and out, and people to manage the different things that have to cross county line, right?
Okay.
All right. So, but they're not doing much at the state level with that tiny little snippet of income. I could see it. I could see the input. I could see it as a investment by a Knox County to make sure, I don't know, Loudoun County doesn't go completely to shit.
How does that better Knox County?
Well, because a lot of people that live in Loudoun County come to work in Knox County. And if those people leave Loudoun County, they may not come to Knoxville. They may go to Nashville, or they may go to Lexington. And if we lose those people from Loudoun County to Kentucky, we don't get any of their money. It would be a worthwhile investment for Knox County. Not an obligation. It would be an investment by Knox County into their neighbors to ensure that their workforce, who doesn't necessarily live here, has a way to get to work and has the means and whatever.
I'm behind on the sentiment, but how realistic is that?
I don't know. How realistically well functioning are we in? I mean, that's like I don't understand what the pushback is based on, pushing back against because of what? Because of current? Because current is better than what my illustration is possible?
I think the illustration is a grand idea of a plausible idea. But
I'll take plausible as a win.
But also leans back on a system that it's trying to replace.
How does it lean back on a system it's trying to replace?
And you're idealistic for a neighboring county not to falter, it would behoove.
Behoove. Fuck you. I'm saying it my way. I can throw back to jokes. We drink all the time, and I still remember shit.
It would behoove.
Behoove. Behave. I'm going to be all snitty about it.
The better off county to help the neighboring county, because it would mutually benefit both. We agree on that. And yet it's trying to replace a system in which it's already trying to keep all the conjunctioning counties together, functioning relatively well, not perfectly, probably not even well or even close to it.
But mine is based on selfishness, which is a more realistic human trait than altruism-ishness. I don't even know what we'd call the current system. I mean, mine is trying, that's part of the idea of mine, is that it is playing off the innate selfish nature of people to do what's best for them. And what's best for them is whatever in this case.
Huh?
Now, it would be arguable, but it would be, I mean, that's the whole point of what the example we just put together was. It would be in Knox County's best interest to invest in its neighbors, to make sure that its workforce who comes in from neighboring counties can continue to live and work the way they want to. So that it would be selfish on Knox County's part to do it that way, right? It would be in their own best interest. Where currently, it's not in Knox County's best interest to be neighborly with their surrounding counties. It's obligated. It is taken from them. And actually, right, like Knox County schools, Knox County is a, what do they call it? What did Ron call it? It's a giver county. The 5 big counties in the state pay in more than they get back for their school systems.
Yeah.
Which again makes sense. It's a little sense in the current system or whatever. But it's not, It's not because it's in their best interest. Does it help Knox County to fund? Where's Waverly? What county is that?
Bradley?
Sure. We'll go with that. I don't know if it's true or not.
I think so.
But I'll take it. Bradley County. Is it good? Is it? I mean, it would behoove of
Well, I mean, in your
Nashville, Davidson County to maybe invest in Bradley County because they live and work there. There's probably people that live there that commute in, right?
I hope not.
It's not that bad. It's like an hour. I mean, without traffic. There's probably some.
Maybe.
I'm sure there's plenty of money that comes into Nashville from Bradley County, people going into party and whatnot.
I doubt it.
Yeah, you're probably right. At least where we are, there's not a lot of people that are cosmopolitan, per se. Anyway. I acknowledge that there would be... There could potentially be some downsides to the grandiose idea that I'm pitching. But those downsides, I don't know if those downsides outweigh the downsides that we're dealing with in the current system. As a comparison, would be my argument, at least.
It's one of those things that's hard to flesh out without actually doing it. You really never know until
right. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, you kind of have a little bit of an example with the European Union. I learned a little bit more about this today. One of my podcasts did a big monologue on it. So one of the big issues that England rather, had with the European Union is that a lot of the European countries in general are very, what's the word? Isolationist is not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for here? Economically speaking, they are very self-serving, for lack of a better word. So, like Germany being the prime example of, like, a ton of shit that's in... If you're in Germany, almost everything in Germany is made in Germany. If it's not made in Germany, there's a huge import tariff, tax, whatever. Whether it's made in France or whether it's made in Japan or China or whatever. Like, German... the grand economic program that Germany runs on is very German-centric, which is good for Germany, right?
Right. They have one of the stronger economies in the EU.
Right. Because they export way more than they import. And so everything that Germans buy are made by Germans, and people all over the world buy German shit. Where the inverse is not true, like especially in America. Like, we import everything. And other than cultural shenanigans, movies and shit like that, we don't export much. Except war and death. But anyway. And so one of the issues that apparently England had with the whole European Union thing was that Germany was still doing that. And the whole premise that England wanted to get in on was wanted to get German goods cheaper, but also get English goods into German market without the huge tariff. And to help English companies get into sales in Germany and make more money to bring back to England.
I think they do have lower tariffs within like the EU trade bloc.
Right, but it's still apparently it's still not it still wasn't significant enough that like I don't know this is a specific example. I'm just throwing it out off the top of my head like, oh, it's a good English Old Speckle Hen, English beer, just random, very Sam Smith Brewery in London, trying to export to Germany and still paying a significant tariff to get into Germany.
Well, that was their mistake right there. You don't export beer to Germany.
But I'm just saying, I'm just throwing a fucking example.
I know.
Whatever. What's an English product that you can think of off the top of your head that isn't beer? But no, that's perfect. That's the point. I mean, whether we're going to argue about the quality of German versus English beer, that's not the point at all. But Germany is protecting the German beer market,
right?
And if outside beer is coming in, there's a huge tax to get it in there. So, sure, Old Speckled Hen can hit the market, but even though it's functionally comparable to like a Paulaner, it's going to be twice as expensive because they got to cover that tax. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they're protecting their German beers, which good for Germany. They can do that fine, whatever. But if you're going to enter into some sort of agreement where everybody's supposed to win, well, England is not winning in the story because what do they get new? At least from the German portion of it, and the Germans being the biggest economy in the Union, England's not getting a piece of that giant economy, so what's the point?
No, but that's where you sit down and have trade negotiations and figure out what market you're trying to boost.
That was the point of the Union, though, was to help. That was supposed to be a big trade and economic and
right. I'm sure they're
military
benefiting other
union.
things, and what's going to be highlighted are probably some things that are, ruffling feathers.
Right. What the English don't do is cars, and the Germans do well. And so the Germans were good with getting more cars in England.
Right.
I mean, nobody likes it. Aston Martins aren't that cool. I mean, Bond was cool, but
right.
They're not that awesome of cars compared to Mercedes.
I think they were made by Ford for a while, and now they're owned by... It's another crazy thing about conglomerates in general. I think they might be owned by Fiat now. I'm not sure.
Aston?
Possibly. I don't know.
Apparently,
it was always a weird buyout. So
I love the Top Gear / Grand Tour. I was rewatching that one. Apparently, like the DB5, the newer one, has a Mercedes AMG engine in it. But anyway, so where did we start on the trade stuff? It's part of my crazy.
Oh, you were saying something interesting you learned with the EU bloc,
right? But it was going. It was coming off of whatever reference in my utopian crazy land that I want to live in. Because to me, again, okay, so to go back to my thing, it's like to me, if Knox County, like again, this goes back into why I think there should be metros. You have a county seat. Every county has a seat. That seat should be the major city in the county. You might as well just have the totality of government be that one. That's kind of how I think about that. To add another layer to my fucking bullshittery. So there should not be a Knoxville and a Knox County government. There should be a Knox County government. There should be one government for this sub-region. But if Knox County wanted to allow abortion, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to, just because the state says no. Because to me, like one of the things we always talk about, and this is one of the things that Max talks about, and something that I've had arguments with people about too, because it's not that easy to move. But that's always the argument. It's like, like the Joe Rogan argument or the Elon Musk argument. California was getting out of control. They said, fuck it. They packed their shit. They moved to Texas. Joe Rogan just signed a $100 million fucking Spotify deal. It was not a problem for him to get up and fucking move to Texas. Now, if I get pissed off the Tennessee government and want to move to Texas, it's a huge financial burden for me to do so. But if I have a really big problem with Knox County government, when I get the fuck out of Knox County, it's not that big a deal for me to move to Lenore City. It's not easy, but it's way easier for me to move to another state. And so that's another part of the layers of the thing and why I like that. So like if certain metro areas, counties or whatever want to go certain ways on hot button issues or whatever, and I want to get the fuck out of here, it's not as hard for me to get out of here and do this and do that and not support. Not financially, functionally support a government body and location that is doing something that I morally disagree with or agree with, whatever. That goes in. If I would have known I was going my Utopia episode tonight, I would have prepared a little better. I've got graphs and
I can see that. I don't want to sit here and poke
scatter pots. Well, what's yours? How do you picture a better version of the world?
I don't try too hard.
Because that's my problem. Like that's my problem when I talk to people about it. Like it goes like we were talking last week about the guy that was talking about.
I try to be realistic and not I'm bad about assuming that what I think would be a perfect world, would be a quote unquote perfect world. But it's what's perfect for me is not going to be perfect for everybody else.
Which again, that's a philosophical, logical conclusion to come to. And that's why when you get mad at me when I go on my stupid, they think we're too dumb to make our own decisions thing, right? Like you hate it when I go down that rabbit hole. Am I right?
Probably. I don't know.
Like when I'm talking about, like when I'm like, like we were on COVID shit, and it's like, well, they're too dumb for us to make up our own mind about a certain situation. We're too dumb to do it. They need to make the decision for us. I know you've gotten all pissy at me when I've made that
It's possible.
that phrase made. Anyway, is what you just said. The perfect for me is not likely the perfect for somebody else. That is that same thing. That is the different way of saying we're too dumb. The government has to make the decision for me thing. And that's, again, why my core philosophy makes sense to me is that I'm too dumb to know what's right for you. So I'm not going to try. I don't want to try to make decisions for you. You make your own decisions. And so we lean back on this, but there's bad people out there that do bad shit. Well, sure. And as much as I would like to help them make better decisions, if I don't have direct contact with them, I can't. But we're never going to legislate them out of existence. So why are we taking away from those of us who can take care of ourselves to make sure that this small group doesn't have the ability to do certain things that we don't want to do? Like, that's the gun control argument to me. That's a whole bunch of the different arguments to me. It's like, I can't make that decision for you. And how are you allowed to make that decision for me? And you being a grander you, not you personally, but the government, the people, the whatever. Like, how does anybody, because again, what you just said to me feels like a different way of phrasing exactly the argument core of almost everything I bitch about on this show.
No.
No?
No. What you were asking me was my idea of a perfect world. And I said, I don't have one particular ideal of a perfect world for the Earth to operate as. Because your version of perfect may not be somebody else's version of perfect. Right.
Well,
that's not me agreeing that I'm conceding that I don't have a perfect world, so I should allow other people to do as they choose as long as they're happy. Because I shouldn't try to ask them to not do bad things.
Wouldn't it be a logical leap?
Because I should just assume that there's going to be bad people doing bad things. And I can't stop bad people from doing bad things. Because if I ask them to stop doing bad things, then
right. I know, I get what you're saying.
I'm putting controls on people from doing things.
But, okay, I jumped a little further down the road than I guess you were trying to with your statement. Is that I'm still sticking to what I'm saying. Yes, I think I'm correct. Your recognition of your version is not necessarily my version of right in the world of functioning, of whatever you want to call it. No,
as I completely started out saying, I haven't thought of it that much. I don't think of it that much.
It's still like your gut reaction to the question.
I don't idealize a perfect utopian society.
Okay. I don't either, because I think that in and of itself is impossible.
Right.
But as a closer to is where my thing is, and again, I think you still said it, whether you meant to or not, is what's perfect for me, what I think's perfect, I know won't necessarily be perfect for others. That's what you implied with what you said.
That's just an honest, realistic outlook,
right? But that is the core of the philosophy that I'm trying to say. Is what I think is right and what I think is good is not necessarily anybody else's version of the same thing. And so, who am I to tell them that their version is or isn't? What issues would you say, other than what we've already covered, of the nose is the end of my freedom thing? What issues would you say? What issues would you say that...
Because we all can't agree on what things are good doesn't mean we all can't collectively agree on things that are bad and that we don't want to be a part of a society.
Sure.
But as far as agreeing on...
version of it, so what is a list of things that you say that you would think that you would have the authority to tell somebody else they can and can't do?
I don't want to do this right now.
Okay. What else is new?
You've asked me this twice, and I don't have anything that is new, Seth.
Okay. I'm just throwing stuff out, man. I'm not trying to piss you off with that.
I know you're not trying to piss me off. I'm just saying that you've forgotten that you've asked me this twice already in this episode.
I mean, I ask you multiple times every episode.
That's right, and I always say the same thing. There's nothing new.
There's plenty new. What was it?
Did you see? I think he brought up Elon a few times.
Yeah.
There was a funny little thing about. I guess there was the big meeting at Davos. Apparently, Elon came out and said he wasn't going to be able to make it. I thought it was funny. Whoever is like one of like the organizers of Davos like decided to like come out on, I think it was on Twitter of all things. It was like Elon was not invited. The last team was invited was like 2015. Just totally throwing shade on Elon.
So
he was like, I'm not going to be able to make it this year.
What is Davos anyway? Like I've heard the stories about it. People have been talking about all that kind of shit. Like what is Davos? It's like the richest people in the world get together and talk about how they want the world to be.
It's an economic forum, but they also, I think there's like celebrities that come too. But it's generally people that are involved in humanitarian.
I mean, the Russians weren't invited either.
I'm sure.
I know that part.
Wouldn't surprise me if they were some former, like Gary Kasparov. Well, sometimes they'll have like human rights activists. And
so it's activists and...
They'll have world leaders. I'm sure, like Bill and Melinda Gates, I'm sure have been invited just with their philanthropy throughout the world and being former richest people in the world.
What do you think about? This is kicking back a little bit.
Obviously, Elon thought he was invited and wanted to exude the fact that people assume that he was invited. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm just not going to be able to make it this year." I just thought it was hilarious that they were like, "You know what, motherfucker? We didn't actually invite you, and I'm going to come out publicly and tell you that you have not been invited for over 8 years."
Maybe it's my information bubble, but like I always get the feeling that Davos is like just a bunch of rich fucks getting together, talking about how to keep themselves rich and shit.
No, that's more what goes on like Jackson Hole.
No, I don't.
That's where big money gets together.
So I don't really understand what it is.
I mean, Davos, I think it is like the World Economic Forum, maybe.
But like,
I get confused. But then you also have like, the G7 that get together.
Like but the G7 is governments. Like that's a government. I
think it's like the 7 largest economies in the world.
Right. But it's their government.
They realize that their large economies are kind of helping influence the rest of the world's economy.
Davos is the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. Meeting is underselling it slightly. With thousands of attendees in towns, it's an invite only for the duration of the sessions. It's more cult festival than Zoom catch-up. Catch up.
News.sky News.
Yeah.
They have their own website, I guess.
What's that? Sky News has their own website?
Oh, right there. What is Davos? Oh, it says wfforum.org, maybe.
We Forum?
I don't know if that's an official thing.
I mean,
World Economic Forum is what it stands for.
Yeah. World Economic Forum annual meeting. Ooh, we can watch it.
I don't know if this is the official website or not.
Here's everything you need to know about the World Economic Forum's annual meeting.
Well,
Davos in Switzerland.
Go to the bottom and see if this is an actual official site. So I'm not sure if this is or not.
Copyright 2023 World Economic Forum. Is that what you're looking for?
Looks pretty legit, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard to know if you're on official websites,
Fair enough. Davos in Switzerland is Europe's highest town. It's also shorthand for the World Economic Forum. Here we explain who comes to Davos each year, what happens there, and why it is so often the center of world events. Davos in Switzerland is the highest town in Europe, but ever since World Economic Forum brought its annual meeting to the Alpine town, the name resonates with solving the biggest issues facing our world. It's a meeting that gathers together government, business, and civil society leaders with the knowledge, expertise, and clout to make positive change happen. Established more than 50 years ago, the annual meeting embodies the spirit of Davos, which is an attitude of openness and cooperation that is the core mission of the forum. Who are the attendees? Nelson Mandela was there many moons ago. Yeah. Did you see anything about who's there? What's the...
I doubt they're going to have a complete list of attendees.
I mean, just saying. Blockchain is a topic. Emerging technologies. I don't know. The metaverse.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, just a
bunch of people.
I did a piss poor way of it, basically explaining that. Yeah, I mean, there are some world leaders.
There's a bunch of people that go
world leaders, but I mean, they'll have celebrities as well.
I'll piss you off. A bunch of people that know better getting together to plan for the rest of the world.
I think Idris Elba was coming this year, but I think he does a lot of philanthropy.
Philanthropics.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so we've been watching Celebrity Wheel just for fun. And, they do it up extra, and they make sure all the different charities or whatever that they're doing are getting plenty of money. Like, I really need somebody that understands, like, the economics of this. Because, like,
are they losing money for charity?
Like, how much? Well, I'm sure it's a write-off for Wheel of Fortune, because I think they probably take the donation, right? They get to, when, somebody comes and they're playing on behalf of, the American Red Cross, and they win $100,000, and the donation goes in their name, but Wheel of Fortune gets to write off that $100,000 as a tax write-off, I would assume.
Maybe.
I would assume that's part of the deal. But it's like, I was thinking about it because, like, there was one episode, and I can't remember what it was, but there was 3 contestants on there, and all 3 of them had homeless charities. Not that homelessness isn't a big issue, not that it's not important. I'm not trying to say any of that kind of shit. But, like, it just kind of dawned on me, like I'm curious how much money every year is donated to charities and or spent by local, state, federal governments on homelessness. Like, I'm just I don't know. Like, it dawned on me that's got to be a big fucking number, and it's still a big issue.
All right.
I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be. I'm just like it was just kind of one of those brain exploding moments. It's like, holy shit, this one's here for like an LA homeless shelter, this one's here for a San Francisco one, and this other one's here for like a Vegas homeless shelter. And like, this is 3 people that are all trying to raise money for homelessness issues in a corner of the United States.
Yeah. And
so like but there's a bunch of different charities, and people are like, Make-A-Wish and all this other kind of shit. And like, it just kind of dawned on me, like, how much money are we talking about? Like, across the board, like how many, like, we were talking about, we were talking about nonprofit issues, which again, that new tax thing would take the church nonprofits out of the question, but theoretically, as I understand it. But like, how many nonprofits are out there, and how much money are they generating doing their nonprofit work on whatever the issue is? And how are we not better off on these issues than we are? Or are the issues that much worse than they would these issues be that much worse and we just don't know it? Like, I'm not trying to put a slant either way on this. I'm just like, it just kind of broke my brain for a minute trying to like wrap my head around like the millions and billions of dollars on certain subsects of philanthropy, and we still can't get anywhere on these issues, is what it seems like. And I could be totally misrepresenting the situation, but it feels pretty crazy to me. Like, it feels like it feels like the math's bad. Like, we should be better about the issue that's being raised money for, or the issue is so much worse than I can even imagine that even with all this money, this is the best we can do.
It's a bit of both and other issues. I mean, with a lot of charities, I mean, you've seen it even with some of like the bigger ones. You'll occasionally see, like 2020 Dateline NBC type little exposés talking about the actual breakdown of for every dollar that you spend, only 20 cents actually goes towards the direct cause of it, and all these overhead fees. So, I mean, just in that exaggerated example, maybe 80% of the funds that go into this charity, only 20% are actually going into fixing the root
I acknowledge
cause.
that as a reality,
right?
And which is a bummer. Which, again, and I jokingly kind of do it as a throwaway in that setup for this conversation. If I understand the fair tax appropriately, that would do away with some of that.
How so?
Because the benefit of starting a nonprofit, so you don't have to pay taxes, you can expense the shit out of stuff and do all the write-offs and losses, goes away. So you don't have people starting nonprofits as a profit-rearing enterprise, where they go in there and they start a nonprofit and they pay their executives exorbitant fees and only get 20 cents of the dollar out to the actual cause. it disincentivized that action, theoretically.
I mean, some of it, it's just realistic cost of operating a business in general.
Right. But when you get to what you were talking about, when 20 cents of the dollar gets there, that 20 cents is, if it's homelessness, that 20 cents is buying
sometimes it is waste and abuse, but some of it is just actual operating cost of trying to do kind of a good thing.
Well, I think if you're doing the math, though, if you're trying to do the thing, that goes into the cost. Like if you're actually doing the thing. So if it's a homelessness thing, if you're renting apartments and that's a cost to the nonprofit, that counts as that percentage.
Like Second Harvest.
Yeah, they have trucks and they have to pay for those trucks and all that stuff. But I think that would count.
Right,
as,
but they don't do anything to make money. They're basically, from what I understand of it, they basically will call kitchens or whatever, have kitchens like, hey, do you have shit that's getting ready to go bad in the next 2 weeks?
No, they have a thing with all the grocery stores.
Right.
As well. They go in the grocery stores, they pick up stuff that's right on the edge of that the grocery store is okay with.
So nowhere in that process are they making any kind of profit, any kind of funds whatsoever.
They make it somewhere in there. They have to. Whether they're selling that food.
What are they getting paid to do?
They're either selling that food or they're taking donations in to pay because they have drivers and trucks. The trucks take gas.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying there's
Right, but that's not operations anymore. That goes into the cost. That I think if you're doing the math,
that is the cost of operations of operating.
But
that.
it's if you're a watchdog group that's watching. If I were tasked to go and audit Second Harvest,
right,
I would count their gas and lease and all the different stuff, and the guy that drives the truck getting paid and stuff like that. Whatever rate that he gets paid or however that works, however they all set that up, I would count that as doing the job. And so if I'm comparing that to donations to cause, I'm counting that gas, I'm counting the employee, I'm counting that time spent as towards the job. So if we're gonna do the math on this, 80 cents of the dollar, 20 cents of the dollar, 55 cents of the dollar, whatever goes to the cause, I would count that as the cause, because the cause is to collect food to then give away or sell way underpriced to people who can't afford better. The overhead is when you go into whether it's like executive salaries or things that are not directly or not truly directly into what you're saying you're going to do. So staying with the argument is that there is a director or president, whoever the top dog is, who manages all the different people and the parts and pieces and says, hey, we're going to do this thing now instead of this thing. We're going to change this policy. That person getting paid, I would count as overhead. Because if they have a warehouse that they're bringing all the food to, that warehouse is part of the project.
I see what you're saying. I guess in my envision of the Second Harvest thing, that 20% was the actual 20 cents of goods that are actually being distributed out. Right,
I get what you're saying, but like Wounded Warrior Project got in trouble a couple of years ago because some of their top brass, their executive committee people,
making six figures.
We're had a big salary and we're going out and doing events that were not fundraising events, but we're holding meetings or whatever. It was expense account bullshit. It was, I'm the president of Wounded Warrior Project. I'm going to Aspen with my family, but I'm going to expense it because I can, because the IRS is dumb. And
because I was meeting somebody out there for a business meeting.
Right. That's the kind of shit that is the exploitive use of the process, where the actual brass tacks of what Wounded Warrior Project does, but then you take the entire income of the year versus what that guy got paid plus what that guy spent on stupid shit that wasn't actually related to the job. That's what you break that 50 cents of the dollar value on.
Right. Now, there's 100 different ways you can abuse and misuse.
Right. How do we get to that?
Magic.
Very magic. So I think what else? Bypass, talked about that. Lundy doing her thing.
You think that George Santos is going to resign?
I don't know. I wouldn't.
Apparently both sides of the aisle are. pushing for it.
The problem is, again, the problem is the people that are going to push him. So it's a Republican.
It's probably going to have to come down to his constituents actually calling for it.
I think if, but even that though, like if you're,
I think even like the local like alderman or whoever, local commissioner or whatever, I think he was even behind and like pushing for him to resign.
But okay, morally, yes, he should.
Right.
Morally and ethically, as a human being, I think he should be recalled, and I think it should go through that process of that the local constituency recalls him, and it's a hard, difficult process. You got to get a lot of people, got to do a lot of shit.
Well, it sounds like he's already been referred to the ethics committee for campaign finance.
Now
they did say that if that was the only thing that Congress would actually go forward with,
right,
actually trying to remove him was if he violated campaign finance laws.
Right, but if I'm McCarthy and I'm on the politics side of the game, if it's all about this red seat, blue seat bullshit game,
one seat's not going to make a difference. He's not that worried about that.
What's the count? What with the holdouts? It was 220 to 206,
something like that. Oh.
Well, you have 5 people that have already been more than willing to do some fuckery as Republicans. So it's 215 to 208 with 5 willing to do fuckery and 1 random shitbag. And actually that one random shitbag is one of the 205. So it's 204 to 5 to 208. No, I'm sorry, it's 214 to 5 to 208.
Yeah, you've got small faction. You've got the squad on the Democratic side that didn't want to
which isn't willing to do what this new Republican squad did, but whatever. My point is, if you're McCarthy or if the Senate Ethics Committee, you have a Republican in the chair who's going to do what you fucking tell him to do. At least he's going to lie and tell you he's going to do it. But he's going to do what you tell him to do. He's going to vote the way you want him to vote. So to kick him out and risk a Democrat taking that seat is probably not your favorite, not your preferred move. On the politics only side.
Well, and a recall, if he was recalled, does it not automatically go to the other candidate?
That's a killer question, but I don't think that. No, I think it would demand a special election. It would be an empty seat.
I think so.
For however long it takes for them to get a special election. That would be my assumption. Because you've had what's his name died in Alaska, and there was nobody in that seat in Alaska, and Palin and whoever else ran against them in the special election that was on the primary ballot to come back and do a regular election 3 months later.
I think you're right. I think it would essentially be an open seat.
Right. And again, on the purely politics side of it, if you're McCarthy and the Republicans at large, you would prefer he stay there for a term and just shut the fuck up and do what he's told. Now, if he's going to get all crazy, they'll get him out of there in a heartbeat. But if he's just an R that votes R like he's told, I think I wouldn't kick him out if I were them politically. But yes, morally and generally and whatever, yes, I think they absolutely should do so. Okay, so back to local. I thought of one last thing, and we could maybe close on this. There's one of the other things on the legislative conversation, the legislative breakfast conversation that I wanted to bring up was, what is the term? Impact fees. So this is the county commission asking for the state to let counties have the authority to drop impact fees. What an impact fee would be if I wanted to develop a neighborhood in, I don't know, like that horse farm up here on Urban Ridge that's been there forever. That guy decides to sell, and I want to go buy it from him, and I want to develop a neighborhood. They do impact studies every time any developer comes in, zoning changes, all that kind of shit. They do impact studies, like how much more traffic is this going to put on the road? Do we need another school? How many more kids is this going to put in the schools? What's this going to do to all the different infrastructure that we provide as a county to this location? Essentially, what an impact fee is, sure, you can do the thing, but per square foot of house you build, you're going to pay X number of dollars to the county as a tax to build that development. And I don't know where I sit on this one. It's very interesting to me. Like, especially when one of the other big topics that they're trying to tackle right now is what they call middle housing, which is like duplex, quadplex, courtyard houses. Have you ever heard of that? Mm-mm. So, like, instead of having a single family
it's like
home,
the ones that had on like Big Love.
Maybe, yeah. Well, no, that's a cul-de-sac that they all had.
Was it? Yeah.
But basically, instead of having a cul-de-sac in the middle, you would have the yard for 4 houses. You'd have 4 single-family homes on a small lot, but the bulk of the yard would be a shared space in the middle. It's just a higher density housing, but not apartment complex density, and not single family, but it's that middle set.
Quadplex,
right? Duplex, triplex, quadplex. And so both of these things have been conversations recently, and both of them been in commission meetings recently. Or the middle housing issues at large in Knox County has been a big issue. But then the commission is asking the state to allow the county to add impact fees on developments. And I don't disagree with the base premise of what the impact fee is for.
Paid for by the developers.
Right. If you want to build a house, and it would be a house, period. Like if I built a house, if I bought a plot of land in Knox County, if I bought a third of an acre and I wanted to build a house on that, I would have when that house is completed, I have a $3 per square foot. That's I think it can up to $3 a square foot. I think is what they're asking the state to do, is allow them up to $3 per square foot on development. So $3 a square foot of house. So if I build a 1,000 square foot house, that would be a $3,000 tax when I build my house. If I build a 20,000 square foot apartment complex that has a bunch of different apartments in it or whatever, it's a $60,000 tax when I build that before I get approved to build. I don't know where it sits in the timeline of building the project, but that's the idea of the impact tax. And so it's interesting because I get it, because that's a big thing over here on the North Shore, that North Shore project that has had a bunch of people fighting back on it for years now, is they're trying to shove a bunch of housing back in there. It's like North Shore can't handle more traffic.
Right.
And the developer's like, well, I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to do that. And it's like, well, are you willing to pay $3 a square foot of residential that you put in this whole section? Because it'll be a big number, but that big number would then be able to be spent on.
That's what I wonder, and how it would really disincentivize it. If it would just make subdivisions with houses that were further apart.
Well, it would make density more desirable.
Not as many.
It would make density more desirable. You'd want to make
6-bedroom subdivisions versus more like 2-3 bedroom house subdivisions.
No, it'd be the other way. You'd want to make more density, not less. You'd want to make smaller houses on smaller lots, because the end buyer can eat that amount easier on a smaller house than a bigger house. Because if you build a big giant house, that cost that you're passing on to the buyer is going to be big. Where you build a small house, it's right. And so it would actually incentivize density, which is not a bad idea. But it would also disincentivize building, period, which is already a problem with the housing market as it sits. Because with lending right now, you're fucked. You're not buying a house if you don't have cash.
I forgot. I saw a number today. It was nationwide. If they were talking about Tennessee, that home prices or home buying was down like 30% compared to
where it was
an all-time high. Well, no, I think even just 6 months ago, it was crazy high because everyone was trying
100%. That's 100% the Fed. It's 100% the Fed jacking rates. That's all it is. I mean, it's all it is. Because I was in it when it was happening. Like, first time I went and talked to my broker about a mortgage, we were at like 4.5%.
Right.
Last time I talked to him was like 7%. And the difference in payments between 4.5% and 7%, and more realistically, the 2 and 2.85 that this house is at, the difference in payments is astronomical. Mm-hmm. Like, so I think for every 1%, I'm totally grasping at this. I don't remember the exacts, but general premise. For every 1% in interest on your loan difference, it's like 25% difference in payment. So you've got $1,000 payment at 3%. It's a $1,250 payment at 4%. It's a $1,500 payment at 5%. And so, like my house, which I'm currently paying way not that much for, at 2 and whatever, would, if I refinanced right now, just for value, which would be dumb to do, but if I did just for value, my payment would double, just because of interest rate. I would get nothing. It wouldn't be cashing anything out. It'd be literally the amount my loan is at the new interest rate would double. And so, like, it's already hard to buy a house right now, which goes into a whole other set of things. And I actually got a whole conspiracy theory that I'm brewing on whether or not this is intentional by the Fed for these mortgage investor groups. It's intentional by the Fed. They're wanting to do it. They're wanting to slow down the economy. That's the point. That's why you jack up interest rates.
They're trying to slow inflation, yeah.
Right. They're trying to slow down the economy. Or they're trying to slow down inflation. So the way to do that by Fed capability is to slow down the economy.
Is to raise the rates. But rates go across the board from home loan to auto loan.
Right. But the conspiracy theory would be that they're doing this intentionally because it makes cash buyers the only buyers that can buy houses anymore. And the only people who can buy houses for cash are investment groups.
That's already been an issue. I don't think it's conspiracy theory. That was an issue in 2008 when we had the housing bubble.
Right.
Even when that happened, the only people that were able to buy.
Right. But, they're buying. And so we have more landlords than we did.
That's capitalism. They're taking advantage of what they can buy because they have the money at the time.
Sure. That's capitalism. I agree.
It's not a conspiracy theory. They're just taking advantage of the market as it sits.
The conspiracy would be whether or not the Fed is doing it intentionally to help said investment group, investment class, I guess, for lack of a better word. Whether that's their actual goal in it, not really not really slowing down the inflation. That's the conspiracy part. Whether that's the intent to help BlackRock buy more houses.
They're not making any more money off of it. If anything, they would make more money off of more people being able to take these high interest loans.
Who?
The Fed. And not take short, quick payments.
Right, but the Fed's not in the business of making money. At least not through their operations. It's not what they do.
The Treasury makes the money.
Creates the money.
Creates the money.
Makes and creates are not the same thing. So, speaking of monopoly.
Potato, tomato.
I wish I should have screenshot this and sent it to the group text so we could talk about it more exactly. But this guy had he explained Monopoly as a game. Like, what is the game of Monopoly?
What?
It's capitalism.
Please just go.
We're on a capitalism thing. I was just running down the capitalism thing.
Okay.
Just what's your Florida man then? We can be done.
I don't have a Florida man.
Why don't you?
I don't know why you're asking me. You want some weird answer out of me when you're asking what is the game of Monopoly. It is a children's board game. I don't know what answer you want out of me. You obviously have something that you want to convey.
You're right.
So please go ahead.
I'm sorry, you're right.
You're asking me a stupid question that I don't know whatever answer you want me to give you.
No, you probably would have said it right, Gubby, because to win in the game of Monopoly, what? You own everything, right?
Everybody else has to go broke.
Right. Which means you lose too if you're going to put it into the translatable capitalism, right?
True.
Which is why Monopoly is not
capital. You still win, right?
The game of Monopoly is not capitalistic. Functionally. It's not.
Right, you still win. You came out on top, you own everything, you're set. You die happy and super
You're not
rich.
set. That's the point.
Why not?
If you're using it as
you literally own everything. Everything is
right, but
yours.
you make no money because nobody can pay you. Right? That's the analogy of the game.
What do you need to get paid for? You own the bank.
The analogy of the game is to win is owning everything. You're right. That is the analogy of the game. And that is why the game is actually smart. Because if you play the game, to win by the game rules, you lose. Because to win by the game rules, you own everything and you make no more money. If the point of the game is to make the point of the game is not to make money, which, as I understand the definition of capitalism, that's the point of capitalism, is to make money, right? Would that be the very basic, simple definition of capitalism? Is to make money, make more money, and then make more money?
To have capital.
To own capital. Would money be one of those?
Yeah.
But the ism is that you capital. But you want more, right? That it's the more part. Is the more part not part of it?
What more is there to have in the game of Monopoly once you own?
No, I'm not talking about Monopoly anymore. I'm talking about capitalism at large. Very basic, simple definition of capitalism is to make more money. All the time.
Yes,
constantly.
Yes, there is no end game in capitalism.
Right. And so the analogy of the game actually clarifies the point of why capitalism is actually pretty good at what it does. Because if you win Monopoly by the rules of Monopoly, you lose in the reality of capitalism. Because if you own everything, you don't make any more money.
How?
Because everybody else is dead. In the game of Monopoly, at least. They don't exist anymore. They're not paying you anymore. They can't pay you because they don't have things.
Jumping back and forth between the game Monopoly and then capitalism in real life.
Right. So capitalism in real life is actually being cooperative enough to not take everything.
No, if you won capitalism in real life, you would still have the demand for people to
right. You're always making
have
more.
your stuff.
Right. You're always making more. You're always making more.
Right.
Now, in the game of Monopoly, when you have everything, you can't make more. Right? There's no more to make. You have it all.
I'm confused.
I'm a little confused too. My point is that
if you won the game of Monopoly in real life, the only way you would lose is if you were the only person left on Earth, in which you would still win because you would still have everything and could go down that rabbit hole. But if the population of the world was still here and you were essentially the winner in the game of life, you could exist.
You can't exist in a world without other people for any period of time. You are not, unless you are a survivalist, which basically means like.
I guess we would have to argue the situation of it, because I would think if everyone else lost, everyone else is broke, and everyone else has had to essentially take out loans to still then live and survive and operate.
But then you're the one giving out the loan.
You still owned everything. People would still have to rent and try to get things from you.
But you'd have to be the one to give them the loan to do it.
Right. You're still a winner.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are.
There's no more. You can't create more wealth out of nothing. You already have it all.
People are indebted to you.
Okay, that doesn't give me more. That means I'm owed more, but it doesn't mean I have more. I can be owed.
In the American system, you have more because you were owed more. So then you're
because I have somebody. Well, because I have somebody else that I can loan against, that I can borrow against what I'm owed.
You don't have to borrow.
Exactly.
You own everything.
Correct.
You don't have to borrow.
Which means
they still owe you more money than you have,
which they can't give me.
You technically kind of have more because you have more still coming to you.
No, you don't, because you have to give it to them to give you more. They can't give you more than they have, and they already owe you for what they have.
They're going to figure it out somehow.
No, they're not. That's the point. The point is that if you try to take Monopoly as a real game, you lose by winning. Because when you win, you have everything, and there's nothing else you could get. And if the point of capitalism is for more, you can't get more out of once you have everything. You have to have other players. So the point is that there is an innate need to cooperate at some level for capitalism to work. And it's why the point of the meme or whatever was to shit on capitalism, and to me it clarified why capitalism is actually better. Because you can't. It's not capitalistic to take it all. Now we have players in the game, in the real world version of it, that are trying. The Bezoses and the Musks and the Gates and whatnot of the world, that they're trying. The Saudi royals and whatnots. But at some point,
it's literally impossible to own everything.
Right.
And to corner every single market. It is not capitalistically feasible.
It's not realistically feasible.
Right.
But I don't know. Anyway, I just thought, I failed that whole segment. So if I was any good at editing, I would delete that whole shit.
Sorry, I poked holes in it. Sometimes
you didn't poke holes in anything.
Oh, I did.
I didn't present well, but even in not presenting well, I just again, if capitalism isn't the right answer, I don't know what is, and I'm open to listening. I just don't get it. I don't see it, and maybe I'm so brainwashed by capitalism that I can't help myself. But
there's flaws in it all.
Sure, but acknowledging the flaws and doing the best you can with them versus trying to eliminate them I just don't see that as a solution.
I wish you would take that sentiment in some other areas.
What does that mean?
What did you just say?
I don't know. I don't remember. What did I just say? Flaws. Okay. We're done. I'm not sure what I just said. It was probably something stupid or smart. I really don't know. I'm really confused. Anyway, we're Almost Agreement. almostagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check us out. Working on the voter guide 23. Got like 4 city council seats and judge and the mayor. So it'll be a big one because the mayor's on it. But anyway, I'm really confused. I'm going to have to go listen back to that last 5 minutes and think for a hot minute on it. So anyway, we're Almost Agreement. Check us out. Go to your favorite podcast provider, like, share, friend, follow, tell all your friends about us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that kind of cool stuff. Thanks, everybody. Bye.